Hello and welcome to Slade on Slade. This is my beautiful wife Leslie. I am Keith. Today we're going to be doing a review of the short story by Elias Witherow, Feed the Pig. Before we get into it, I want to remind you that my book, The House of Ribbons, will be due out sometime in the next few months, I think.
Yes.
We are in the absolute final stages of editing. For anybody who has not read this short story, spoilers ahead, I will be posting all the links I have for the short story and other books that Ellis has written. It's definitely this is definitely worth a read. Before we get completely into this, this is a sensitive subject. This is a short story on suicide. One of the reasons my wife and I have chosen this is we've both read this short story a few years ago when it was relatively new. And we like to give it to our friends who are mentally in hard times. I'm not allowed to drop his name, but we gave it to one of our close friends and it stopped a suicide. We found the story to be incredibly powerful, as we do, and I'm hoping that this will get out to those in need. So again, sensitive topic, spoiler warnings. If you want to just pause the video now and then go read it, go for it, come back, and we're going to begin. My wife is going to do the lion's share of the review because she is easy on the eyes, and I think you're going to appreciate her voice better than mine. Without further ado, did I do that right?
So like my husband said, Feed the Pig is a story about suicide. So the short story starts out with a man that is tied up in a area that he has no clue where he's at. It's in a room that has no windows and just a door that's wide open.
With ominous noises coming from down the hall.
Yes. A little boy that is, not a little boy, a boy that is dressed in like a onesie type outfit with a devil's mask comes in.
Yeah, I really picture that kid to be like a 4-year-old.
I did too.
He's in feety pajamas and then this Halloween mask, but he has impossibly big eyes. So it's like, I would imagine the kid to like a 4-year-old.
So he comes up to him and says, "You did something really, really bad." And then another man enters the picture and smacks the kid up against the cement wall and then shoots sawed-off shotgun.
Wow, when you talk about spoilers, we're just going to do this verbatim?
No, I'm not.
Let us tell you the whole story.
I figured that was a good point to have.
Yeah, no, that was a good, yeah. It was, well, because it's so visceral. You know, you're picturing a child, you know, relatively, for us, the age of 4, being completely decapitated by a shotgun by like a heavy-set, greasy guy. It's just the visceral tone for a man who is then tied up in a chair. So you don't really know where it's going to go.
Yep. And then a man by the name of Danny comes in, says that he is second in charge of this area he calls the Black Farm, which is considered purgatory.
Yeah, well, we don't know for sure it's purgatory. You know, it might be different types of purgatories. You remember, the story is neither God nor the devil know what to do with people who are suicides.
Yes.
So this is where they go. So it could be read as purgatory without the author, without Ellis coming right out and saying this is all of purgatory. I wouldn't like to think that this is anything but purgatory for suicides because it's a pretty dark place. We don't want to spoil why it's dark, but the reason behind it is really interesting. It's very interesting. This is not a very long short story. You could probably read it in about 10-15 minutes, depending on your attention span, but it's chock full of details. Right there where we like it.
So, like my husband said, this is a place where the suicidal people go because the God and the devil couldn't decide whether they should go to hell or heaven. Because why send a good person to hell for a moment of weakness? So God put the pig in charge. And with his newfound power, he decided he wanted to make his own little world.
I think it's more of an afterlife. He tried to create his own life, and because he's neither God nor the devil, the way I interpret it is that life became the life that he created became twisted and most unnatural. So this purgatory is a step up from hell. But as Ellis wrote, hell doesn't get much worse in this place.
And then so Danny tells him he has a choice to make. He can either stay here and endure what this world has for him, or he can feed the pig.
You can exist. This is a place that you can exist on some level. You have those that were created, and the rest of the population are those that are suicides. It's not really clear 100% whether as a suicide, if you're killed in this realm, if you reconstitute, but there is a very small sentence that points towards that's what happens. You die and then you wake up and you just constantly running from these ever-present horrors.
So he tells him he has a choice and that he's going to come back in a little bit and figure out, get what his decision. So at that time he leaves, and then the gentleman falls in and out of sleep, like lucid
Still
typing.
tied to the chair.
Yeah, still tied to the chair, can't leave it or anything like that. And then he gets woken up by another creature.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and skip that because it's fairly graphic.
And then once they leave, then he is visited by a female.
A female, yeah. She's got one eye.
One eye.
You can clearly tell how she self-committed.
Mm-hmm. And then she tells him, I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure I said it correctly. So.
She's an expositional character, and she is basically giving him something verbally that he will use right at the end of the story.
Yes.
And I believe, without looking at the story, I believe it, facing your fear is better than living an eternity with your fear. Did I get that right?
It says, sometimes suffering through your fear is better than suffering for eternity. So after she leaves, he goes and says that I have decided that I want to feed the pig. And when you feed the pig, you have the pig chooses whether you go back to life or you go to hell. So Danny comes back and wraps his face up and takes him to go see the pig. Now from here, you're gonna go have to read and see if he goes through with feeding the pig or if he backs out and says he wants to stay.
This is one of those situations where you get the option to say, I deserve this. But the pig serves as the vessel that grants you one of two paths, okay? Obviously set forth by that universe's God. And if you, as the reader or the viewer right now, the reader then, read this, could you imagine making a choice? I mean, this place is not great, okay? But it is a step up from hell. Could you imagine having to make the choice? Okay, I deserve to live. Okay, sounds kind of selfish in a way, but maybe you do. But you won't know unless you take this incredible leap of faith. And what a leap it is. Mm-hmm. I have 3 soldier friends that have done the forever sleep. And I also lost my mother in 2013 to suicide. This story hits home because it gives you that moment to reflect on what really is out there. Because I get in a lot of arguments with friends that are pro-suicide, against suicide, and you can't really tell if the person is weak or strong, okay? Weak because they gave up on life, someone could argue. But then you could also argue strong because they're willing to open a door that once you open it, you cannot close. You cannot come back through it. So there is no right or wrong. This is ultimately on the individual. And this story gives you the interpretation of what may happen. There's not even any proof that there are gods up there. Okay, so we could fade off like a light bulb, or be welcomed into the arms of someone who helped create us or did create us, and then be sentenced for what we did do, and or just be patted on the back for whatever. We don't know. That's the important part. This story is a cautionary tale. What if? What if this shitty day you're having today, you make a decision that impacts the rest of your life? Because quite literally, it is the rest of your life. Whether it's 3 minutes or it takes you a long time to die, okay? That is the rest of your life. Now, a lot of people say, well, you know, a rainy day today is a sunny day tomorrow. Hey, we've all had rainy days, okay? But all you have to do is look at the statistics and those who have tried to commit suicide and lived through it, and read their stories of how they wish they didn't, because it's crippled them emotionally. But they all say the same thing: I am glad I did not die. And they're not going to waste the remaining life that they have. So, not to get off too far off topic on this, okay? This story shouldn't just be read. If you know somebody in need, you don't have to say, hey man, you seem like you're going to be suicidal, you should read the story. No, just say, hey man, I read this great short story. Slip it to them, you know? The last thing somebody wants to do, whether they're on the edge or not, is be preached to. And the majority of people who do commit suicide, statistics speak this, okay? They never give any indication. My mother gave zero indication. She went on vacation, killed herself on vacation. How old was she? 59?
I believe so, yeah.
59. She was an RN, made really good money, worked in hospice, had tons of people who loved her. It was a ridiculous situation. So it's one of those things, and she gave zero reason on why she really did it. So hopefully this story can help people. So feel free to propagate this story, push it out there, share it.
With my story of suicide, it was one of my soldiers that was underneath me. So reading this, it put me in that perspective of, oh my gosh, like, where did she go after she died? Like, it made me think of, I don't want anybody to go through something like this. Like, you don't know what's there afterwards.
What
like,
deployment did I have it on?
The last one.
Okay. These people don't know. What number deployment was
5.
this? My wife has 5 deployments, and she's just celebrated her 20 years. In 5 deployments in 20 years, she has never seen a corpse. Now, I myself, just for my first deployment, one of my awards was I had the most road time in anybody from battalion and below. I volunteered to go out on the road a long time, and I was that guy who rides on the top of the vehicle with a saw. So I saw a lot of things, been a lot of places, been all around Iraq, and seen my share of dead bodies just in the first deployment. This was radically different because my wife is a non-combat person. And the person who self-committed, you would have never guessed this person would have done that.
But I think that maybe a story like this probably would have helped her a little bit to maybe think of, hey, I don't know what's on the other side. I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I shouldn't do this type of thing.
Just think about that. Your life could be worse than it is right now, okay? We don't know what tomorrow is. Your whole family could be wiped out in a car accident. You could walk in on your wife or husband hooking up. What you do in that moment is going to determine the rest of your life. I'm not saying it's going to be sunshine and roses the very next day, okay? But Jesus Christ, what if it gets worse? What if this life is great, okay? What if the afterlife is some kind of super insane shit, okay? For the very least, for me, one should fear brazenly walking into the afterlife. This is not like you walked into a fire to save children, okay? But on the same note, if there's a God, when does he forgive a suicide? 9/11, hot button topic, okay? Plenty of people jumped out the windows who escaped this horrible fate that befell them. Are they really suicides? Yes, Yes, they took their own life. Are they going to be judged? How the hell do I know? I barely know my own name from day to day, and it's not for me to judge. But on the same token, you take a person in their mid-30s just having a bad run at life or this, that, and the other thing, and then commit suicide in their bathtub. Okay? Is that more selfish than somebody trying to get away from the flames? Do they all end up in the same place? Are they judged differently? We don't know. Therein lies the fear. You know, the fear of the unknown. Okay? This is the ultimate step you will take. We only get, at best, as men, 65 to 75 years. I'm already 47. I'm already fucked. Okay? The majority of my life is over. Women live a lot longer. But for me, in my own personal opinion, to piss away a little bit of the life that you have, which is smaller than most tortoises. Tortoises live longer than us on average. But to piss away that, yeah, that's frightening concept for me. And to have folded the flag at a few funerals for brothers that I served with, that's deeply sad. A suicide, and this is just my opinion, and feel free to leave whatever you want in the comments, but this is just my opinion. To me, a suicide is a person who feels they cannot go on, and they explode, thinking nobody will care. When in actuality, the people left alive, abandoned to life itself, will bear the weight of their shrapnel scars. Why? Why did this person do that? Why did my friend do this? My friend had everything going. He had kids. He had a wife. He had a great job. Then one day, he literally went out into the backyard and committed suicide. That was a hard phone call for us to get. It was 6 months later. I got the same exact type of phone call about my mother. And I got it from an uncaring, unfeeling piece of garbage family member. So you're left with the question of why? Why would they do that? We can't answer this question. It is life's great mysteries of why people would do this. Some cultures celebrate suicide. Some cultures really come down on suicide. I don't believe it's anybody's job to judge anybody. Treat the dead with respect, no matter who they are. But suicide is the one death that you can literally avoid. And it's usually the person sitting right next to you who needs the most help. And you won't know. But a story like that will at least give them something to reflect upon when the dark thoughts come. Give them something to maybe be afraid of. And fear is an adversary that should be treasured because it causes us to move forward. It causes us to be stronger. The fear of failure has made billionaires on this planet, has made men and women into geniuses because they push harder. The last thing I want to do is hear about another suicide. And the children are the worst when children do it because they have been failed on every single level. But by who? We don't know. And it's not our job to judge those people. This is one of those things where it is an easily avoidable death. And there are a lot of people who don't like to talk. I got friends now, they don't like to talk. And they suffer. Drugs and alcohol then plague the mind even further. My wife and I are always open to our friends who need help, open to other people who need help, simply because sometimes knowing you're not going to be judged helps you get through one more day. And then the next day gives you the reason to live the rest of your life. One bad thought, ruin it all. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be one of the people near you. And I will preach the values of this short story for the rest of my life, only because I've never come across a short story like this. Never gave me the perspective of, holy shit, could you imagine if it was worse than this? I've seen combat. I know what bad is. Now, it's not as bad as other people, okay? But Jesus Christ, imagine if you were just strapped in a chair. You only need to read this short story once for it to take hold. That's all I ask. I didn't want to make the video too long, but since this is mainly suicide prevention, I felt that things needed to be said. And like I said, I don't know how many times I've sent this story out. Probably 150 times.
Mm-hmm.
And overwhelmingly, I get great response. And like I said, knowing that one friend broke down on the phone and was like, this story saved my life. It felt good only because I had a hand in just showing somebody, hey man, the day will get a little bit better. Okay. And you know, it was good, you know. It's sometimes you get little gems, short stories like this, that don't get really enough views. And I think this might have first showed up on Creepypasta.
That's where I read it.
Yeah. Which got a lot of views. It is an amazing short story. I dare you to read it and go, nah, it wasn't. You know, I think this short story ranks right up there with Isaac Asimov's Eyes Do More Than See from his short story Robot Dreams. This is an impactful story. It will stay with you after you read it. I don't know if Ellis wrote it for that reason. I don't know what he was going through or what his mindset was. I would love to know. All I know is he gave birth to what I would consider is something that is damn near perfect. And nothing is perfect. It can only ever be damn near perfect.
Mm-hmm. And that is all we have for you today. So we will see you.
Bye.
Bye.